Hello everyone. I think the stream is running. I'm using a new OBS and it's been a long time. I'm sorry about that. It has been a busy time at the end of the year here in Greenville. But I wanted to put together a short video for you. I'm also having all kinds of new setup issues, so I can't use my normal camera that I like. And so we may be stuck with this for a while until I figure all that out. But anyway, I'm going to play a Harris Etude that I probably played on the channel before. And I have been working on trying to just keep my sound really nice and open as I move around. This is a fairly technical etude, and so I want to make sure that I can play. What always happens to me is I try to just focus on the technique, and maybe the notes come out, but they don't sound as good. And as soon as I start trying to keep the sound even, I feel like it works better, right? And so part of that is a more open sound tends to play the trumpet better, but also just that there's some trust there and I don't have to goose every note and try to really manipulate it. So I'm going to practice this piece for you a little bit with that in mind. Mostly this is for me to listen to later and see if I was successful in any way. But if you're watching this later, you know, you're welcome to type in the comments about whether or not this is a technique that you use and if it's helpful. And I hope you're already having a good break between semesters right now. And if you're not in school, then I hope you enjoy a little bit of this Harris Etude. But anyway, I'll talk when I think it's necessary, but generally I'm just going to try to practice so you have a good example of that. And in case you are on break and you're thinking, yeah, I really finally have time to practice now, let me do the best I can at that. And so this is my somewhat human, somewhat best attempt, somewhere in between. So here we go. So you hear I'm going slower when I'm unable to either read the notes. There's a funny marking here that I think maybe is not correct, or it's an obvious etching error, so I'm not going to worry about it too much. But when the articulations get difficult for me, then I slow down because immediately the sound is going to go out the window, and then I'm not going to be playing my best. I can already feel how fatiguing my support is getting because it's not used to actually working that hard when I play technical things. I do it with my lips, and that's not the way I want to do it. So now I'm supporting better, but it's also taking more effort to do that. So let me adjust this also so you can see the trumpet a little better. Okay, so let's keep going. I also didn't start at the beginning in terms of practice techniques. You don't need to start at the top left of everything. I started immediately where I saw something that I could work on that might be challenging to my ear and certainly challenging to my playing, and it happens to be right in the middle of this etude. So I'm going to work my way outward from there, but I really want to try to get the second half better because the first half I'll have concentration, not maybe when I'm practicing, but when I'm playing through the etude. This is, by the way, Harris number 32, in case you wanted to follow along at home. But here we go with a little bit more of that, and you'll see, like, sometimes I don't get everything right, and so I do something about that. And you may not notice if I play a wrong note that sounds right unless you're following along, but I think that it's good to take a listen to somebody else that's practicing and see if you could maybe learn something from it. I do this all the time, even with my students, where I go, well, that's really smart. I should probably do that too. A really good example is my dad was listening to Caleb Hudson do a master class, and he was, he was playing really softly, and so he said, well, how do you play, like, how are you capable of playing so softly with such elegance and, with such a good sound and with so much agility? And he said, well, I just practice it every day. It's like, it's so obvious when you hear it out loud or when you see it. So hopefully some of the practice that I'm doing today is going to be inspiring in that way. Probably not to that level, but anyway, here we go with some more. So here you found my Achilles heel, which is that I really trying to refuse to change my embouchure just to get these low notes. To change, I should say, change my jaw. You have to change your embouchure a little bit, but I'm trying so hard not to just drop everything open just to get these notes, because then I'll run into problems later. So I'm trying to be strong about it, but I'm a little flagging. It's 9:30 at night here, so I'm a little tired, and I'm a little tired mentally. And so it's really hard to do, but I'm proud of the effort that I'm making, right? It doesn't have to be perfect as long as I know that it's going in the right direction, so that tomorrow when I'm a little fresher, maybe that does work. I'd still like to get it tonight though. Where was it even? Oh. Now I'm missing too many notes. And I'm playing a little too loud too, because it's easier to play with my best sound a little louder. And that's a, maybe it's not a mistake, right? Because I'm still accomplishing my goal. I'm trying to get the production to play the trumpet for me. But I'm playing pretty unmusically, and I'm playing, I'm not stopping for wrong notes, which is good. I can go back and fix them later. And I need to practice the flow of everything, right? So that's a thing that a lot of people get wrong, is that they don't really, they stop with every time they play even a little bit something wrong. And I've done that a little bit too, but once you want to go slowly enough that you can kind of roll through it, and you go back and fix it. But I'm playing a little too loudly, and I'm not playing very musically, and so those things, if I don't add them soon, they're not going to get added. They'll feel like they're tacked on to what is otherwise a boring, loud performance, right? So I need to start being more, there are dynamic sort of, at least hairpins marked in here, no dynamics specifically after the beginning, which is just forte. So I think I'm allowed to play a little bit robustly, but I don't want to just let that fly the whole time. I need to play with the sound a little bit. And since this is a violin etude, I can maybe think about how the violin would either really sound out certain passages, or maybe how they would dig in order to bring out the best sound, right? Sometimes they dig into the low register to keep that sound projecting and even, and I think they call it weight, but I don't know if I don't know if I'm describing the right thing that they do, but I've seen them do it, and so I can sort of imagine this sort of like slightly grittier, slightly more intense, kind of more volume coming out of the low register sometimes, and then letting the high register sort of float a little bit. Or I can also imagine that the high register just flies out of the violin a little easier. And so maybe I can bring all of those qualities to this performance, or rather this practice session, so that it comes out in the performance if I ever do decide to play through these all at once. Where was that wrong note? So there's a good spot where I definitely might want to dig into those notes a little bit, and that'll help me just to play them, right? So, and I'm almost at the end. I just needed to practice that spot because it doesn't look, I want to play fully diminished 7 arpeggios, and it's not that. It's, what is it actually? It's a G dominant 7th chord, which makes sense because this whole thing is in C minor, right? But it sometimes plays the arpeggio and then sometimes goes by step, and so I got confused and didn't really know it, right? So I have to learn it. But if I think about it just quickly, right, then I'm immediately going back to playing the sound that I learned that it was, and I don't have to spend 1,000 hours just like going over the fingerings because I know the sound and my fingers can play the sound, right? So I don't get stuck on little things like that. Certainly do get stuck enough to fix them, but you don't need to play every passage 100,000 times. You do need to hear the correct sound of the passage and then practice doing that. And maybe at first you do have to do it 100,000 times, but once it's something that you know really pretty normally, well, this is a case in point, right? I'm getting stuck because something is slightly more familiar than this to me that would make sense in this place. And so I want to play the familiar thing, but it just means I don't know this piece very well. And so once I learn what this sounds like, then I should never make that mistake again, right? So let's practice it and then finish it out, and maybe we'll call it a video. I'm missing all my timers and things. Oh, there it is. Okay. Yeah, that's about right, 15 minutes. Maybe I'll try to play some of the first page too. Now, what I don't want to let go too much is when I don't hear a note well enough, or I'm pressing too hard or something like that, and I get that cacked note when it's not like a high note, right? That last A flat I tried to play, kind of didn't quite respond. It responded on like the B flat, C kind of partial, and I don't want to let that go too long because that's going to be really hard to fix. So as I go now, I need to go slowly enough to be able to keep the flow going, but really trust the placement of those notes, and maybe actually like really place them sometimes when I know that that's going to be a danger zone, especially when you're changing registers really fast. Sometimes you just have to use a little of your muscle strength to place the notes. That's part of what the embouchure is really good at doing, and we want to do that as little as necessary, but not less than necessary, right? A lot of people will say, well, you'll never have to do that if you just practice. And that's what we're doing, is practicing the smoothness of it, trying to get the production and the air to do the work for us, keeping it nice and open. But we'd be lying to ourselves if we said we didn't have to use any strength any time. Maybe some people are built for trumpet better than I am, and they can do that, but I have to use strength pretty much all of the time. I just don't want to use more of it than I need to. And so the whole idea of the setup is that we're using a minimal amount of strength constantly in the background that we can then ramp up for one or two notes if we need to. And you might think, well, those are probably the high notes. Actually, the high notes are the easiest to get with the air. For me, it's the low notes that are really hard to keep the sound and intonation and all of that kind of together. And so that requires a lot of strength. And then just any really big leap or any note that's kind of like out of place, we tend to not hear it as well. And so then I need to place it more physically until I hear it better. And then yeah, it gets easier as you hear it better. But anyway, all right, well, gosh, I don't want to play this whole thing, but maybe we can play what we've already worked on. And I will this time kind of go back and smooth things out if I don't hear the right sound right away, or I get that kind of cacked sideways tone. I do need to fix that, and so this won't be a performance necessarily. Well, maybe I can work from the beginning until I get tired. How about that? We haven't looked at that part yet, but it is more familiar to me. And that way you get to hear something new, and you can hear all the mistakes I'm going to make. Okay? And then I'll guess I'll sign off the video after that. And you can hear it takes more strength than I have right now to place these notes so that they don't crack when my lip starts to get swollen and I'm using some pressure, right? So, but the pressure is necessary and so is the strength in order to be agile in this way. So anyway, I'm anxious to look back at this tonight even and watch this video and see what I'm doing. I'm sure I will notice a lot of things that I need to fix. And I'm sure you did too. You may also notice that my breathing is all over the place, and that's because I'm not at tempo yet, and so right now it doesn't make sense to make too many breathing decisions, right? I can always go with the phrases, and I try to do that still. You can hear me breathe in the right places sometimes, but a lot of times I just need a breath, and I know that I'm breaking this phrase, and there's just nothing I can do about it because I'm focused on the playing right now. And for me, that's okay. I can go back and I was going to say rebreathe, redecide where my breaths need to go, and then I can follow that once the fingerings and the sounds and everything are going fast enough, right? Because this is probably an etude that needs to go so that you can make the same kind of lines that the violin would make. And it may not even be it may be a cello etude for all I know, but it seems an awful lot like a violin etude, and most of the Harris book is. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you learned something new, and I hope you're having a wonderful break and have plans to practice hard and have already practiced lots if you've been on break for a little while. Don't just practice your music for auditions in the spring. Make sure you practice your fundamentals primarily, and you will have the best audition that you can. Anyway, that's all for now. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks a lot.